Okay, this is our assignment on creating database tables and creating databases using the graphical user interface in Microsoft SQL Server and MySQL and Oracle. Let's start by going to our web page. And I will access my Canvas site. The assignment that we're working on today, I believe, is assignment 10. I'll double check to make sure. I believe this is assignment 10. It is true. Using the following database design example, I'll use Microsoft and MySQL and Oracle to create tables. They want me, in every case, to simply create a database called Biggie, and we'll have a design template down here that we'll use. And I'll use that as an example. So I can certainly just keep this available to refer, but for me, I think I'd rather actually download it and use it. So I've got the document downloaded. I'll close my browser. And now I'll go to my downloads folder and get database design. That's the file that I'll work with. Be careful when you're using a Word file. Some of its characters are not compatible. But this is what we'll work from. Now, before we do that, let me set this over to the side so we can work with that data. Let's create a database and these tables: product, customer, invoice, and invoice line item. And I'll show you how to do this. But before we create the tables, we have to create the database or schema. We'll start by working with Microsoft SQL Server. And Management Studio will start. This is a management tool that can be used to manage and design databases. It works well with the Microsoft SQL Server. I'll connect to the instance that we created. Now, over here in Databases, you'll see my Object Explorer window. I'm going to right-click and say New Database, and simply call it Biggie. Don't have to change anything else. Say OK. Now, if you want, you can refresh and then expand the Databases menu, and you will see Biggie. Expand the menu under Biggie. I'm clicking on the little plus sign, and now you'll notice it only has some of the default and system tables. Right-click on the Tables folder and say New Table. Okay. That opens up the designer. Let me move this over a little bit. I want to give us enough room for the designer. So this is the designer that we'll use. And I'll start, in this case, entering in the columns. I'll do the columns first, and then I'll do the data types. And in my case, I'll make it easier. For every table, I'll color them so that we can tell we're dealing with a separate sort of entity here. I'll color them all like a green, so that's to do, that's green. And there's create table customer. And there's alter. I'm just making it easy for us to see. In fact, I'll create table invoice and alter table invoice. I'll do it a slightly different color so we can sort of tell the difference. I'll make that a blue. And then invoice line item, which belongs sort of separately. There we go. I know that there's a lot of stuff with invoice line item, and let me highlight that, and I'll highlight that to, I don't know, a green. I just want to make them look different so that we don't get messed up on. So that's green, that's blue. I'll change this first one. There we go. It's just easier to graphically see. All right. So in this case, I'll insert a page break here. So we'll just be dealing with this. And I'll insert a page break here. It's a graphical way to keep stuff separate. And I'll insert a page break here. And finally, I'll insert a page break here. I'm only doing this so that it looks easier for us while we're working on it. So let's create this first table, product, and I'll start to design using our designer. And I want to work with both tables sort of as quickly as I can. So over here in Microsoft, I'll actually type in, and normally I will use lowercase, but I can also do uppercase, so I'll do a caps lock. Product underscore number, and I'll just click on the next one down. There's a reason I'm doing that. Product underscore description. I'm clicking and then another click. List underscore unit underscore price. So I've created the 3 different columns, but they need data types. Product number is going to be listed as either a variable character or, in our case, a Unicode character. I'll leave it default. You can do either one. If you want to do varchar, you can. And the difference between varchar and inchar is one of them uses more bits because it allows the possibility of using different foreign fonts. So we'll say varchar 10. And is it allowed to be null? And it says here it's not allowed to be null. So I have to take away this check mark. Let's go to the next one. This will be a varchar 100. I won't use nchar. I'll be consistent. Although in the real world, I'll probably use nchar. And we'll do 100. So that matches. And then finally, I'm going to use a numeric field. I don't know if I have actually numeric. Yes, I do. In Microsoft, I do. I have a numeric, and I'll define it as 7 characters and 2 after the decimal. So that's 7 and 2. And all of these are required. So take away allowing null, because it says here, I'm not supposed to have nulls for this product table. I do want to create a primary key for product number, so I'll go right over here and right-click and say Set Primary Key. And that's it. Now, before I save it, I want to make sure varchar numeric, like it says down here, allow nulls no, allow nulls no, and allow nulls no. Perfect. And the primary key. So I've set this the way it should be set. Now I'm going to click on my Save button up here. And now it'll ask me for a table name. And of course our table name is, in this case, a table name I'll use lowercase. And say OK. First table is done. I'm going to leave this open for now. I may need to refer to it again. All right. First table is done. Let's go to the next table, the green one. This is customer table. I'll go back over to the tables folder and right-click and say New Table. And it'll open up another blank tab. Let me switch over to caps lock and type in customer underscore number name city. I'm just pressing the tab key. State, tab, tab, tab. And I have customer number, name, city. I need address. I messed up. Customer number, name, address. Tab, tab, tab. City. Tab, tab, tab. State. Tab, tab, tab. And zip underscore code. Now let's set the parameters. The first one for customer number, they want it to be numeric. Is there a numeric without a comma? Well, here's numeric right here. I'm going to say numeric, and I'll see if it'll accept just numeric 5. Maybe it will. And I'll change the rest of them. Microsoft properly defaults to nchar, but we'll change it to varchar to match. So I'll change that to 25. And I'll change the next one to varchar to 255, I think, yeah. 255. City is, and I'll see if I can do it. No, it won't work. I have to pick it from the menu. City is varchar 50. And because my state code is not a variable length, it can only be the exact amount of my state abbreviations, I'm going to say not variable character. Remember, variable character allows me to put up to that many, and it won't matter if I have to put less. I'll have to look for CHAR. There it is. Just CHAR. And for the state column, I only want 2 characters, the state abbreviation. But the zip code, again, is going to be variable character. And we're going to allow 10 for that. Now let's go over and check our nulls. I cannot allow nulls for any of these. This is not allowed to be null, so I can't allow it. This is not allowed to be null. This is not allowed to be null. This is not allowed to be null. And this is not allowed to be null. But I may allow a customer without a zip code. Now let's take a look at what it says for constraints. Primary key customer. So I'm going to set the customer number right here. Just right-click on it as a primary key. Perfect. Now I'll click on Save. And in lowercase, I'll type in the name of the table. Customer. That takes care of 2 of them. Now let's go to the next. This is invoice table, and we've got a couple of keys we've got to work with. Don't worry, you'll see. Let's create a new table. I'm not going to close these yet. I'll leave these open for now. Right-click on Table. Go to New, and then Table. And let's start. I'm going to type in invoice number, invoice underscore number, tab, 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 customer underscore number, tab, 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 terms, how it's going to be shipped and what are the payments, tab, 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 well, here's ship. Ship underscore via, tab, 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 and order underscore date. So my column names look right. Now let's set. My invoice number is going to be a numeric 7. So I'll go and pick. Where's N for numeric? I'll go and pick a numeric, and I'll just type in 7. Let's see if it'll allow me to do it. I think it will. My customer number is going to be numeric 5. And you'll notice Microsoft automatically put a 0 in, so we can't change that. So I'll go over here and say numeric 5. I won't even try to erase it anymore. Okay. And then we have varchar 20 and varchar 30. So I'll go down here and change it to varchar 20 and change this one to varchar 30. And that takes care of those. And we have to start watching. How about the order date? Well, we're going to have to pick a date format. Let's take a look. We have small date and time, small integer. I just want date. Where are my D's? I just want date. That's it. All right. Now let's check our nulls. This table, the invoice number column has to be there, so I can't allow it to be null. The customer number must be there. I can't allow that to be null. Terms and ship via may be null, but I have to have an order date. Okay. Now let's take a look at some of the constraints. I know that my constraint is going to be invoice number is a primary key, and I know that. So I'll go over here and right-click on invoice number and say that's a primary key. Now, for right now in this moment, I'm going to save it, and I'll type in invoice, lowercase, but I'm not done working with it. So this is saved as an invoice table, but here's something a little bit different. Isn't it true that if I make an invoice, my invoice must have a customer number on it? When I make an invoice, it's for a customer, and this customer better exist in my customers table. So in that case, I'm going to have to set up a foreign key. And I can do that a couple of different ways in Windows. You know, I can take a look at relationships or keys. Let's take a look over here. Here's my table. I'll expand it. Let me refresh and you'll see it. Let's take a look at my invoice table right here. And you'll see where it says keys. And this is a primary key invoice. But if you right-click on keys, you have this menu choice, a new foreign key. Remember, we have to make sure when we create an invoice that it contains a real customer number. So we're going to be looking at the customer table every time we make an invoice and we put in a customer number. It's got to be a real customer. So this will be a foreign key. All right, then let's say I want a new foreign key. And here's the foreign key box. This right now has given us a default name of foreign key invoice. And I think they would like us to change that name to foreign key invoice underscore to customer. That's just what I'll call it. Now let's create the relationship. Go up here, and it doesn't even show you how. There's a tiny little box that gets activated when you click up here, and that is going to allow you to make the relationship. So here's how it works. For my foreign key table, remember, I'm in the invoice table. My foreign key table is going to be the customer table. So from my key, from my invoice table, I'm going to pick customer number, because that's the one that I want to point out to my foreign key table. So I'll go over here. Primary key table is, I'm sorry, I got it opposite. Wonderful. I'll have to fix that. My primary key table over in the customer table is customer number. See, we're pointing back to the primary key. And here in my invoice table, it has to match to customer number. They do it a little backwards, but it's fine. In this little window, here's what it's saying. The foreign key is in the invoice table. We're creating a foreign key right now. And the foreign key I want to use is customer number. It will point to another table that has customer number as a primary key. And we know that the customer table does have customer number as a primary key. Okay. I had it backwards and I fixed it. Say OK and say close. Now we've created, remember, we have a primary key and a foreign key. If you refresh it, I hope it should be there. Let's take a look. I'll refresh again. Save it and refresh it. Let's take a look at keys. Primary key invoice. Well, let's double check. And there it goes. I just clicked on my Save button, and Windows is asking me, you're creating this key setup. Do you want to save these keys? Yeah, I want to save customer and I want to save invoice because I've now created a foreign key and I need to make sure those work. Say yes. So here's my customer. Here's my invoice. I'll close that. I'll close that. I'll close that. Now that I've saved everything, you'll notice over here, there's my foreign key. So we're good. So I've got DBO customer, DBO invoice, and DBO product. Now I'm going to open these tables back up because I want to show you can reopen them. So right-click on DBO customer and go to design. And there it is again. And right-click on DBO invoice and go to design. And it'll show up there. And even right-click and go to design. So you can have them all up at the same time. There we go. And go back and forth to make sure everything's right. Now we've got one more to go, and it's probably a more complex one. This is a intersection table called invoice line item. Whenever I make an invoice, I'm going to put a customer on it, and then I'm going to start to put the order items in that the customer wants, like a shopping cart. Now, every shopping cart is like an invoice item, but there could be multiple products in the shopping cart. And this sort of describes that. So let's create a new table. I'll right-click on tables and say new table. And we'll start typing in the fields that they want us to type in for this table. And there's only 4. So invoice number, tab, 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 product number, tab, 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 and quantity, and sale unit price. So these are the columns in this particular table. Remember, this is just a line item for every item in the invoice. So my invoice number is numeric 7, and I'll fix that. And that matches up with the invoice number in my invoice table. It's just a 70. My product number is a varchar 10, so I'll make that exactly the same. And if you are creating relationships or keys, they have to be the same type and the same length. Otherwise, they won't work. Finally, quantity will be numeric 5. And sale unit price will be numeric 7-2. 7 and 2. Now, we've got all these set. Let's take a look at our nulls. Every one of these has to be there. So I cannot allow nulls on any of these. Okay, we're not done yet. I'm going to save this table as invoice line item, invoice underscore line underscore item. So I'm going to save that, but I've still got some more work to do. So let me show you. My primary key is invoice number and product number. It's got something called a compound key. So my primary key is invoice number, and in Microsoft, I'll do Control click. Now I can right click and say set primary key, and it now has a compound primary key. Remember, if I make an invoice, each line of my invoice, and my invoice itself is like a document, and each line is a separate product. So every separate line item on the invoice has to be unique to that invoice and that unique product. So the combination of those two values will be unique every time. We're not done, though. We've got a few more things to do on this. So I'm going to have to create a foreign key that references invoice number and a foreign key that references the product number. And I'll do that right now. So let's create a couple of foreign keys. I'm going to go over here to, well, there's my table, and I saved it, so I'm good. Let me refresh. So I'll go to invoice line item and expand that. And I'm going to go over here to click on keys and right click and say new foreign key. All right, I'll fix it. This first foreign key, and let me move it up here. This first foreign key is going to relate. Let me take a look. Don't worry about the check yet. The check is a little bit different. The first foreign key and the second foreign key, let me change the background of it. The first foreign key is going to be pointing back to my invoice table and my invoice number. Okay, so this is going to be foreign key invoice line item to invoice. That's what we're going to call it. And I'll set it up to where it points right. In my case, my foreign key, and remember, I have to get rid of this. I don't want any of that. And I don't want any of that. Here's how it has to work. My table invoice number should point to the invoice table that has invoice number as its primary key. I know it wants to do this again. You can say none. And that's how it should work. And say OK. Perfect. Now, while I'm here, I can make another one. And the other one will be over here. I want to point it to the product table. Remember, an invoice line item, if I create an invoice line item, there must be a real invoice and there must be a real product. I can't make fake ones. So I'll go up here and I'll say, I want to add another one. And this one is going to be called invoice line item to products or product. Is it product or products? Let me double check. References product. Okay. And for this one, let's go and take a look and edit it. Now, for the invoice line item, product number is going to reference the product table product number. Let me get rid of this. None. Well, let me fix it. Let me clean this up. It's just the way that they do it. So there it is. So in my invoice line item table, product number that I'm going to put in it must point back to a real product number in my product table. And I'll say OK. So we've got both of these now, and they both work. OK, I'll say close. Okay, we're not quite done yet, but we're getting really close. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to create something called a check. This is the big deal. I'll even make it bigger. You're going to want to see it. This check constraint is going to say, if I make an invoice line item, I don't want to cheat. I really want it to be real. So let me clean this up, and we're going to concentrate just on this one. I need to add a check constraint. And my check constraint is going to say, if you try to add a line item to this invoice line item table, and you make it equal to or less than 0, I'm going to catch it, because I don't want you making any fake sales receipts that have a 0-priced product. That's cheating. So let's start doing that. I'm going to save. Let me go over and save the table again. And it's already going to warn us, oh, you're making changes to this table that point back to other tables. Yeah, it's true, I am. Yes. But we have to make a check constraint. Now, over here in the menu, you'll see there is a check constraint right there. And you can right-click on it and say, I want a new constraint. In this case, you can also do a trigger, but let's see how this works with a check constraint. So if we want to create a constraint or some check when we're putting data in, go over here to the little expansion menu on our table, invoice line item. Don't worry that it says DBO. That just means database owner, and we're the owner. So right-click on constraints and say new constraint. Now, we're going to rename the constraint. So click over here under the name, and we'll call it CK underscore invoice sale unit price. So I'll just do that. Invoice underscore sale unit. And you could call it anything like price check or, cheater check, but I'm going to say OK. Now let's go over here to the expression. The expression that I want, and I'll even continue it, and I'll even copy it down here from Windows. Sale unit price must be greater than or equal to 0. Well, let me copy it. I'm gonna say that sale unit price must be greater than or equal to 0. So that's the expression that it will check against. Fine. Say OK. And we've saved it and close it. So our table is pretty much set for Microsoft, and we can check to see that it'll work. If I try to create a customer, and I'll go down here and even sort of create a fake customer, and we'll keep track of it. So I'll say, I'm going to create a customer called customer 100. Okay. I'm going to also create a product called product 15. Now, remember, my invoice line item needs a product number and an invoice number. I'm going to create an invoice. that equals invoice number 120. No, I'll just say invoice number 5. I just need those so that I can create my data, and then I'll prove to you that the check does take place. So let's move this over. Just remember those 3 numbers. I'm going to save everything again. Now, I have this guy, I have this guy, and I have this guy open. Can I actually go and start typing in data? Well, this isn't the best way to do it. Let me close these. I'll close this. I'll close this. I'll close this, and I'll close this. Now we'll get started. Let's enter in some sample data. Go over to your tables. We've got 4 of them. I'll start out by making a customer. So right-click on the table and just say, Edit Top 200 Rows. Well, I don't have 200 rows. I'm just starting out. But I will create a customer 100. His name is Joe. His address is 100 Main, City, Long Beach, State, California, zip code 90808. That's my customer. It doesn't even need to be saved. That's my customer. Now let's do the next one. I've got a customer. Now I'm going to create a product. Okay. Go down here and right-click on product and say Edit Top 200 Rows. Now, my product number is 15. My product description is, I don't know, muffin warmer. Now, my list unit price for muffin warmer that I have to charge is $39.95. That's my list price. I get offered discounts, but that's basically my list price. So there it is. The product is in. Wait a minute. Now let's create an invoice. Right-click and say Edit Top 200 Rows. And my invoice number is invoice number 5. And my customer number, and it has to point to a real customer. Remember the foreign key we forced it to do? Well, I do have a customer 100. Now my terms, I'll just call net 30 and ship via FedEx. And my order date, well, I better be careful. How does Microsoft like the date format? Is it month first, year first? I don't remember. Let's take a look. I'll have to prove it to myself. If I go over here and open it up, let's find a browser. I'm going to have to research that. Where's Chrome? Is Chrome gone? Yeah, there's Chrome. So I'll say Microsoft SQL server date format. What's the date format? If it's regular date, it's all 4 years, -month, -day. Oh, so that's what I'll have to put in. My order date has to be all 4 years, 2020. Oh, wait a minute. Let's backspace over the word null. It has to be 2020 hyphen month, I guess 04 hyphen, and today's the 7th, 07th. So it took the date. It didn't fuss. So now I have an invoice. I have a customer, I have a product, and the last one I'm going to do, remember all this is saved, I'm going to go to invoice line item, say edit top 200 rows. Here we go. What invoice does my line item relate to? Well, it relates to, and don't forget, we had an invoice number 5, so I'm creating a line item for an invoice. And the product number, I remember that, product 15. Now, don't worry about the customer because we already have an invoice that points to the customer. Now, I'm going to try to get sneaky. I'm going to order 100 of these, and I'm going to say negative $1, so I'll get $100 back in refund. I'll press the tab key, which puts the information in. And Microsoft found and checked my error. The insert statement conflicted with the check constraint, CK invoice sale unit price. So our check constraint did work. Perfect. And here's what we'll do, and I'll say okay to that. What I want you to give me for your assignment is just this over here where it says Biggie and show me the tables. So I'll do a snip on that. We'll do SN snipping tool. And I'll let me create a new snip. We know that that's right. So I'm asking you to prove to me that you made Biggie, and I hope you saw how the constraints were made. I'm going to go to File and Save As, and I'll save that in here. I've got one called, is it Assignment 10? Yeah, it's Assignment 10 MS SQL. Assignment 10 MS SQL, and I'll save it. Yes, so I've got that. Now, I did that part. I'll still have to come back and use this, and let me close Microsoft. No row was updated. Yeah, I know it was. It wasn't updated because, and wow. Correct the errors and retry or press escape to cancel the changes. Okay, I don't even want this, so press the escape key and escape again, so it's like we never put anything in. Now I can close my database. But it's right. The next one we'll do is going to be MySQL. So let's start up the MySQL workbench. And here's my local instance that I'll start. And over here where it says create a new schema, we can close query 1. Click on the little barrel with the plus sign. I want a new schema, and we're simply going to call it Biggie. Press the enter key. Well, don't do that. Sorry. Click on apply. That's good enough. And this is basically what command will be run. And apply. And finish. All right. We don't even need this anymore. Biggie is ready. And there's Biggie right there. So if you double click on Biggie, he's active, and you'll see the tables are there. You can certainly right click and say create table. And the design screen is real similar. Let me change the size so that we can work with this, and I'll show you how it works. It's very similar in design and structure. I'll do 1 or 2. Let's go back up, I think. Let's see, that's product. Yeah, we're going to start it with the product table again. So I'll just say in lowercase. I'll use lowercase for everything now. Here's my columns. Double click, and it'll be product number Oh, sorry. And the next one, product description. And the next one, list unit. I don't even want any in MySQL. I don't want any uppercase. List unit price. That's it. Let's check our data types and our nulls. All three are not null, so I'll say not null, and not null. And MySQL already decided they're going to make product numbers a primary key. You can change that if you wish. Let's change our data types. Instead of integer, let's see if they have a varchar. They do have a varchar, and it'll be varchar 10. And look, by default, they put varchar, and this will be varchar 100. And finally, we do have a numeric, and let's see what MySQL gives us for numeric. Do they give us any kind of just regular numeric? I don't see anything with numerics in it. So we better think. You want, for numeric, what do you think about, I'll use decimal. I'll just use decimal right there. And I'll say decimal 7,2. So it's as close as I can get on this one. And we have the three not nulls, primary key is set, and we're good on that. Fine. And I'm going to apply it. And this is the code that's going to happen when I do apply it. Click on apply. And the table's done. I can finish that. I'm going to leave this open for now. And I'm going to go back over here and right-click and say create another table. There's the new table. And of course, this new table is going to be called customer. So, customer is the name of the table. I'm going to jump down here and start to do my columns. Sometimes you have to click once or twice. Customer number. And I'll do tab and tab. And I still have to click inside. Name. Address. City. State. And zip. Let's clean up our parameters. We know that the first one is integer. Well, it's numeric. And guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to say decimal and just put in 5. That's it. Now, all my varchars, well, that's going to be 25. That's a little easier. And this is going to be 255. Okay, that looks right. Now, city is 50. So I'm certainly going to have to fix that. State is not a variable character. It's just a char. So where's my char? There it is. Char of 2. No variables there. But my zip code is variable. I would argue not. So we've got all those. Now, all of these are not allowed to be null. So this has to be a not null field. That means it has to be something there. This has to be not null. This has to be not null. This has to be not null. But they don't need zip. Okay. Now, did they already put in a primary key customer number? Yes, they did. So we're good. I'm going to apply it. MySQL is going to run this SQL command, apply it, and it works, and finish. So we're good on that. Let's go to our next table. This is the invoice table. So I'll right-click, create table. This will be our third one. And right here, of course, I'll type in invoice. And we'll start on our column names. First is invoice number, invoice underscore number, tab. Oh, it messed up. All right, fine. The next one is customer number. Tab. The next one is terms. Tab. The next one is ship via. And the next one is order date. And we'll have to watch that. So let's take a look at our not nulls. Customer number and invoice number cannot be null. Terms and ship via can be null because it could be a walk-in customer, but we absolutely have to have a date. Now, you'll notice that it automatically put invoice number and customer number as a compound key. That's wonderful, but I certainly don't need order date as a key, so I'll take that away. All right, it's just not part of the design. MySQL is getting fancy, and it knows that these keys have to point back. But remember, we now have to think about a foreign key. In fact, we've got to go back up here and think about, let me see, primary key for product. It didn't require a foreign key. A primary key for customer. It did not require a foreign key. Invoice does require a foreign key. Remember, invoice doesn't need customer number as a primary key, so I'll get rid of that. Invoice simply needs invoice number as a primary key. The customer number, however, is going to be a foreign key. And so we have to make that into a foreign key. So let's create a foreign key. Remember, the invoice table only has one primary key. There it is. Foreign keys you can find down here in the bottom. We're going to make a foreign key from this table that points back to the primary key in the customer table. So let's go down to the bottom. It says foreign key right here. And I'm going to create a foreign key. Let's take a look. I want a foreign key, and I think they want us to call it FK underscore invoice underscore customer. And that's just the name of it. Foreign key name. What table is it going to reference? My foreign key is going to reference the customer table. My foreign key is going to reference the customer table. So, my customer number is going to reference the customer number. Now, do you see where there's a problem? The selected columns don't have compatible types. The source column has a type varchar 45. And the one we're referencing has a decimal 5. Oh no, I messed up. Let's take a look. I'll say okay. Let's go back and take a look at the customer number. I'll go back to columns. In my invoice table, my customer number should be numeric. Let me fix that then. And we said decimal, and I just said decimal 5. Okay, that sounds more like it. Now let's go to foreign key and see if we can make that work. It's going to reference. Customer number is going to reference customer number. Oh, now it takes it. And this is how you create a foreign key in MySQL. So let's apply the whole thing. Everything we've done, we'll apply it. And this is the actual create statement. This is a SQL statement. Create table biggie dot invoice with invoice number column, integer, not null. Customer number, decimal 5, not null. Terms, variable character, up to 45 characters long, and it is allowed to be null. Ship via is a variable character up to 45 characters long, and it is allowed to be null. Although I would say I should have made terms 20 and ship via 30. So let me cancel that. I'll fix it. Let's go back to columns. I'll make terms like they said, although because these columns don't reference anything else, terms should be 20 and ship via should be 30. Because these terms don't reference anything, it's not that difficult. Let's go back and apply. Now let's take a look. Primary key is invoice number. That's correct. Foreign key references customer number in the customer key table. Yeah, it sure does. So I'm going to apply that, and it works great, and finish. So we've got that table done. In fact, we've got all 3 done. We've got one more to go, and that is our, and let's highlight all that. Let's make it look nice. I'll fix it. Let's clear the formatting. And it's our invoice line item. And don't worry about the underlines. Okay, ignore. Just don't worry about it. So we're going to create a table called invoice line items that will have a compound primary key, easy enough to make, and a check constraint, and foreign keys. So that's going to be a little bit more complex. All right, go back. Let's refresh. There we go. I have customer table. I have product table. I have invoice table. And one more table, right-click, create table. And here we go. This table is called invoice line item. Let's set our columns. Our first column, invoice number. Tab, tab. Our second column, product number. Our third column, quantity. And our fourth column, sale unit price. Now let's clean them up. Invoice number is a primary key, and product number will also be a primary key. But invoice number is numeric 7. I'm going to change integer. Do I have a numeric? I I don't. But I have to make a product number the same format. I have to make the invoice number the same format, both of them, that point back to their foreign keys. So let's take a look. If I go to the invoice table, what format did I make invoice number? Integer 11. Wow. And if I take a look at my invoice table right here, my invoice number was numeric 7. What happened there? I'm going to have to fix that. What a mess. I want it to be consistent. Integer 7. Let me apply it. It's going to make that one little change. Integer 7, apply. That's fine. So I'll go back to my invoice line item. Remember, this was an integer parenthesis 7, so I need to pick a data type that has an integer with a parenthesis and exactly put in 7. I can't make foreign keys unless they match. Let's take a look at product table. Now, the product number in a product table is varchar 10. So I'll go back to my invoice line item table and make sure product is going to be a varchar 10. All right, so those match. Now, quantity, let's go back and take a look. Quantity is numeric 5. That's easy enough to do. So I'll change that to integer 5. And sale unit price is going to be numeric 7.2. Wow. I'm going to call that decimal 7, 2. I'm just going to try it. Now, none of them are allowed to be null. So not null, not null, not null, not null. But I'm going to have to set up 2 foreign keys and a constraint or some sort of a trigger. Let's try this. Let's go to foreign keys first. I'm going to start with this foreign key. Foreign key, invoice, line item, invoice. Okay. Foreign key, invoice, line item, invoice references what table? The invoice table. It's true. And invoice number that I've got here must reference invoice number over there. Good. Now let's do another one. I've got that one. Let's do another one. I'm going to create another foreign key because when I make a line item, it has to be a real invoice and has to be a real product. So this one will be foreign key, invoice, line item, product. An invoice, line item, product sort of points to the product table. And product number must point to product number. Invoice number must point to, invoice number must point to, don't worry about that. If I click on this first one, this matches. If I click on the second one, that matches. We're fine. Both of the foreign keys are set. However, what about that deal where sale unit price cannot be less than 0? MySQL doesn't do constraints like that. They don't have check constraints, but they have something called a trigger. Now, what I'm going to do first is apply this. Then I'll come back and make the trigger. First, let me apply. And all of these statements are going to happen. Make sure you understand them. Create table, big E dot, from the big E schema, create table, invoice line item. Invoice line line item has 3 columns. Invoice number, which is an integer 7, not null, and we know that matches the invoice table. Product number, which is a varchar 10, not null, and that matches the product table. Quantity, which is an integer 5 type data, it's not null, and sale unit price. Primary key is a compound key that includes both. Okay. We do have an index foreign key invoice line item product, and we have a constraint foreign key invoice line item invoice. We have a foreign key invoice number that relates to invoice number, and a foreign key invoice product number that relates to product number in the product table. Looks good. We've got everything set. Let's apply it. And it's happy with that, but I'm not done. I'm going to now add my trigger. So let's go down to the bottom where it says triggers. I'm going to add a trigger before update, or even before insert. I think I'll just add a before I insert it. I want it to check for this. And I'm going to click on my plus sign, and inside the begin and end, I can put in my statement. And I want to mention something on my website. I even gave you guys a little hint. If you go back, we'll go back to our website just to sort of help you with that. We'll go down to Module 10, and you'll see a document that says checks. I'm going to show you something. SQL check constraint. And there's SQL Server, Oracle, and MS Access to allow naming of a check constraint. So I've given you some information. I've given you more than that. A document right here, and I want you to click on it. And I'll open it up and show you. It's a little sort of a cheat sheet. So it's going to say, right down here in MySQL, you see where it says end and if, and end if? Well, I'm going to copy this code. I want to signal SQL state 4500. It's going to give me a message text. And I can say whatever I want to, and it has to be this way. This is the format. And I'm showing this to you now, and you'll see it in the tape as well. Hang on, Windows is trying to automatically type in, so I'll do single quotes. Oh, it's giving me a hard time. Let's just grab this. Remember, it says, if new list unit price is greater than 0, then. And let's see what it looks like in my actual check over here. Begin and end. And I can put all of this in here. I believe that'll work. I think. If new list price greater than 0, and I'll show you this. This is called a trigger. So whenever I try to insert something into this table, it's going to be triggered. And I'll say, what should my text be? No, you can be anything, but that's the text that'll come up. So there's my trigger. I've already got my foreign keys, and I've already got my columns. Let's apply. And now, since we've saved before, it's only going to save the stuff that we've changed. And take a look. Drop trigger if exists. Yeah, because if it was there before, it should drop it. Delimiter, $, use $, that's the delimiter. Create definer, this is programming language in a type of SQL procedural code. Don't worry about that right now. Here's what it's saying. When somebody tries to put anything into this table and it's going to update, then check this first. So don't worry about the create definer. That's just an object that gets created so that I can use it to trigger if this happens. And I put in my if statement. Okay, fine. Let's apply it. Let's see where I messed up. If new list unit, oh, I know where I messed up. Let's go back. Let's cancel. It's not called list unit price, is it? Isn't it called, what do we call it in our database? Let's close this. It's called sale unit price. Oh, all right. If a new, remember, if somebody's trying to cheat, if a new sale unit price is greater than 0. So now let me apply it. Okay, and it's fine. And then finish up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to close. All my tables, they're all saved. They're all perfect. But now I have to prove that they work. And to do that, I'll make a fake customer, a fake product, and I'll use these as a reference. Okay, let's enter some data in here. Go over to your customer table, and you can see right there, there's a little grid. Just click on that, and it selects the table. Go over here to the right and click on Form Editor, and we'll add in the customer. Customer 100, name is Joe, address 101 Main Street, City of Long Beach, State, California, zip code 90808. Fine. And let's apply that. So insert into. All the data is getting inserted, and it'll put it in just fine. And finish. So we've got that guy. Now let's put in a product. And click on the little grid right there. It says the little grid will open it up, and go to Form Editor. Our product number is 15, of course. Product description, muffin warmer. List unit price, $39.95. Apply that. Insert into and apply. And finish. So we've got a product. Now, I'm going to make an invoice. So click on the little table icon and go to Form Editor. My invoice number is 5. My customer number is 100, so that's proper. My terms, net 30, and my ship via FedEx. Oh, my order date. I have a problem. What does MySQL date function accept as a date? Do you remember? Did we even put the date function in? Well, let me revert that. I don't think I did. Let's double check. I'm going to go over here to the invoice and open it up. Let's take a look at columns. Order date was never set as a date. Wow. Okay, let me go and set it as a date. All right. I'll set it as a date. I'll apply that and save it. Order date. And we'll apply it and finish. Okay, now that I've got the date set, remember we're doing invoice. I'll go back to Form Editor, And I want to go to our record. So it's going to be invoice number 5, customer number 100, terms, net 30, ship via FedEx, and the date. Let's assume it's 2020-04-07. Let's see if it accepts that date format. Apply. Well, maybe. Yep, it accepted it, so we can finish that. Now, I'll close invoice. I think we saved it. And now I'll go to invoice line item, and I'll click on the little form editor, and watch what happens. My invoice number is 5. My product number is 15. My quantity is 100. And I'm going to do a fake price on this, a -1. Now, I'm going to apply it. And here's the statement that's going to try and go. Let's see if my trigger worked. Hey! And take a look right here. No, you cheater. That's the error code. So my trigger did work. Okay, well, I'm done. I got to cancel out and I have to revert. I can't save it. So we know that worked. Now, here's our next snipping tool. I want you to take a new snip of MySQL Workbench. And copy that. And do a file, save as, and we'll save it as Joe Student Assignment 10 MySQL, and save. Yes. Okay, I'll close. I'll minimize my snipping tool. I'm going to close MySQL Workbench. We've got one more to go. And I'm going to save it for next week. This video has already gone on for an hour and a half. I will mention, and I'll do that next week. However, let me go over here to this assignment. For those of you that didn't see it, I will say I'll give you credit for doing just the 2 of them. Let me go to Ends Class Exercise 10. And let me edit this. I'll show you how it works in Oracle, but it's just MySQL Oracle, and I'll add this. Optional, do not need to include in shot. Fine. I'll paste a link to the video in here once I get it produced. So let me save that. And I'll put in a link. I think that's it. We didn't do Oracle, although you know, and I'll briefly say, if you actually do want to do Oracle, there's 2 things that you've got to do. I'll just show you the first table. In Oracle SQL Developer, step 1, create a user. First, I'm going to connect to, well, Oracle Express. That's my original system. Because if I expand this, I'm trying to give it a second to expand out. It's trying. There we go. I'm now connected to my top level account. I'm going to go to other users. I'm going to right click and say create user. Okay, fine. I'm going to call my user Biggie. Remember, in Oracle, a schema and a user are sort of the same thing. Now, my password is the same as all my passwords are. Capital P, @SSW0RD. I'll type it in again. Capital P, @SSW0RD. Now, this user is going to have default table space will be users, and temporary table space will be temp. Standard stuff. Now let's grant password expired. No. Operating system user account is locked. Everything is fine, but I need to grant roles. Grant all and admin all, and apply that. Okay. Oh, let's go back to our user. There's Biggie. Where's Biggie? Right there. I'll right click and go to edit the user. Now, I'm also going to give Biggie system privileges as well. Grant all system privileges and admin all system privileges. It won't let me do them all. Okay, fine. Okay, and close. So remember, Biggie is a user that I'm going to be using. I'm going to now, I can create a new connection up here. Here's my new connection. Here we go. And I'm going to call it Biggie Connection. The reason I'm calling it that is because it's just a connection. It's not a database by itself. I'll pick a nice color for it. We're going to go red, red. Now, the username is Biggie, and we know the password. Let's go back. Capital P. Wait a minute. See, it's not showing because Oracle won't show. Capital P, @SSW0RD. So we're fine. I'm going to save the password. I'm going to test it. Invalid username or password. Log on denied. I like this so much. Then I better check it again. Capital P, @SSW0RD. Let's see if it works. Username is Biggie. I'm pretty sure that's correct. And it won't work. So I'll close that. I can't make a connection. I'll have to go back and take a look at my user, Biggie. Well, let's refresh. Maybe that was the problem. Now that I refreshed, Biggie should be there. Let's try it again. New connection. Biggie connection. Absolutely positively, I know that the user I'm going to use is Biggie. And the password is capital P, @SSW0RD. See, I did refresh over here, so hopefully, and I'll save the password, and I'll test. And it failed again. I'll fix it. And of course, for the 10th time, when you create a user in Oracle, the user must have all uppercase name. Oracle won't destroy it, and it allows you to make a user, but you can't create a connection without having a uppercase user. So I save the password. It's successful. Now I can connect. I can now right-click and disconnect from my Oracle connection. I am connected to my Biggie connection. And you'll see there's tables. I'll close both. And I can right-click and say New Table. The format is similar. Schema is Biggie. Table is listed. I'll even mention that in passing. Let me clean it up a little. Let's cancel so I can change the size. Remember, I had to make a user, and then I had to make a connection. So we'll start out with table product. So it's a very similar designer. New table, and here it is. I'll uppercase it now with Oracle. This is caps lock product. Column 1, we call product number. Wait a minute, let me spell it right. Product. And then if you tab across, you really can't tab. You can go down, which gives you the next one. And of course, typing it in, product, description, and go down again. And even if I start to try and type, there we go. List, unit, price. And this is a very similar type of designer. Varchar is listed, but what choices do we have? We have quite a few. But we'll use, in this case, Varchar size 10, so it's a little bit different in the way it looks. Product description, Varchar will be 100. And list unit price, in our case, it's going to have to be numeric. What kind of data types does Oracle give us? Well, it does say number, but I'm a little concerned. I want decimals. So if I say decimal, can I go over here and type in 7,2? And I have to say all three of these is not null, not null, not null. My primary key is going to be product number. So just click on it, that activates it. Okay, that's how you create a simple table. And I'll say OK on that. And now if you go over here and take a look, you should see it. Yeah, there's the product table. There's other stuff we can do to it. Constraints, triggers, foreign keys, everything. All right, and we're going on an hour and a half. This is going to get kind of crazy. So you do the same thing with table customer, the same thing with table invoice. I'll mention this in passing. I'll go back to products table, and I can open up here and go edit, and I can look through the constraints if I have to make them. I can add a primary key, or I can add a foreign key. Take a look over here. What are we going to add? A constraint? I can add a primary key or a foreign key, or a check constraint. So all of those are available. It's just a slightly different view. And I'll build this next week. It won't take us long. I'll get most of it built. And the last thing I'll do is show you how to do a check constraint on the invoice line item table. But we're done for today. I'll close out of here, close here, and close here. Those 2 screenshots that I have are adequate. So all I have to do is include both of those. Remember, I'm saying Oracle is optional. And if I go home and act as if I'm a student, I'll certainly go to Student View and go down to our module in Class Exercise 10. Here's my submission. And I can choose the file that I created, which is assignment 10, Microsoft SQL. Open that one. And I'll add another file, choose it, Microsoft 10 MySQL. Those 2 are good. And submit it. Okay. And I'll show you how to do the check constraint next week. This video has gone on long enough. We'll see you next time.